Have you read Slaughterhouse-5?
Yeah.
Where a man's timeline is sort of just twisted up into a ball.
Yeah.
He lives every moment of his life almost at the same time. How does that image fit on a person in The Cure for 26 years?
Well, although I suppose essentially what I do is the same now as it was then, there's so many things that are different at any given point. I mean, the lineup of any particular band that's called The Cure, it means that in my own mind there has been more than one band called The Cure that I've been in. I've been in 5 bands, I think, and they've all been called The Cure. So I'm not the same person as I was when I started, so I don't think it would really stick. It's an easy question, really. I mean, like, it's an easy implication that I'm doing what I'm doing, that in some way you become, not that you regress, it's just that you don't progress in any way. Like, I'm kind of like would remain the same emotionally and not so much intellectually, because have to be pretty stupid not to have learned anything in the last 25 years. But I mean, I suppose it applies in a certain way, because I haven't really changed my occupation. But I mean, it could be levelled at anyone that's kind of like locked into a family life, couldn't it?
Yeah.
The thing is that it implies that there's something wrong with it, I suppose, why I'm being defensive. And if I really sit back and think about it, there is actually nothing wrong with the implication, because if you're comfortable with what you're doing and you enjoy it, then there's absolutely no reason to continue on. It's like,
yeah, I just figured it's like a frame where you can put yourself at 19 or at 35 or at 40 and see yourself doing things in sort of the same framework.
I think it's probably that I measure my life. I mean, so someone with a family would measure their lives in relation to their children. I mean, I know they do, like with the members of the band that have got families. And I measure mine with album titles.
You must have done a lot of reacting and counter-reacting to your own material. That's my impression.
In what way?
Releasing pornography, and then after a while there's Love Cats. And
I see what you mean.
Let's Go to Bed, and then there's the top.
I think it's not really. It is actually right. It's a combination of a reaction musically. I think, set up with pornography and what came after it, I felt I'd exhausted that kind of idiom. I couldn't really see what else I could do with it. I'd got as far, I'd got as dark as I could possibly go at that point. And on another level, I suppose I react against what people perceive me to be. I hate the idea of people knowing what the band does. I think it's like The Cure's been an unusual band in that we will never shake the goth tag. You know, I mean, even when I was doing promotion towards the end of last year around the Greatest Hits album, I was still having to field questions about being godfather of goth. You know, and this is on it and I'm promoting a record that's got, you know, Friday I'm in Love on it and Let's Go to Bed. And I was making that point, and people just like look at me blankly, like, yeah, and say, yeah. So, I mean, it's unusual that a band will cover such a breadth of material. I suppose we're pigeonholed despite that, and I can live with it because I kind of know that anyone who's into the band knows that there's slightly more to it than just, you know, gloom and doom. But I think with pornography, I got fed up of the audience as well. Just couldn't bear to do another show. I was looking out at people looking back at me and going, I wanted to do something that was more upbeat. I mean, we started off right at the very beginning. I wanted to be a kind of cross between the Beatles and the Buzzcocks. You know, I wanted to be a pop group.
You've been actually trying to sort of get rid of The Cure a couple of times, it feels like, saying this is the last one, even really early on, and more repeatedly the last 10 years, maybe 10, 14 years.
I think 5 times in earnest, and twice I really, really thought it was it. I think after the Kiss Me tour, I said I'd had enough. But that's because we toured for like 14 months, and I fucking hated everyone in the band. So, you know, through the 80s, it's like year on year, it was kind of probably 350 days out of a year I was in The Cure. Whereas now it's probably like 150 days a year, if that. So the perspective's different and the balance is different. So if I'm with them and I do get exasperated or wound up, it doesn't matter because I can walk away from it and do something else, you know, and then come back to it. Whereas if you're locked into, like, you know that in 7 months' time you're going to be in Atlanta, it's a really weird feeling when you start to get cranky with something. You think, 7 fucking months of this, you know. So I think anyone would, you know, the others will feel the same. So I'm the only one that ever gets interviewed. Well, in late '83, I did have something of a sort of mini breakdown. Looking back, I must admit, I mean, everyone's supposed to have one, but I mean, it wasn't mini. Actually, it was pretty massive. Like for a few months, because I was doing the Banshees album, I was also doing the Glove project with Steve Severin, and I was doing Tim Pope's stuff in this very room, actually. In fact, it was on the way home from this studio where we are at about 10 o'clock in the morning that I had a complete breakdown. I had to get out of the car, and I just went mad on the bridge, on Hammersmith Bridge. It was like not very funny at the time, but I would often travel in the morning from doing Breathe Sunshine out to the studio. I was out in the west of London in Reading, recording the Top. And I used to get in a taxi and go, and we were staying in a pub, and I used to arrive in the pub at about 10 in the morning, have a couple of drinks, and go to bed for a few hours, and then get up in the afternoon, go and start recording the Top. And then I'd finish at about 3 in the morning, travel back into London, and then go out with Severin, you know, to an all-night drinking place, and then we'd go into the studio. It was that kind of lifestyle. I thought it was really good. I thought I was Superman, but it was a pretty stupid thing to do.
It seems pretty insane when you think about it, what you were doing those...
I thought I didn't have long left, you see, and it's kind of a vicious circle. I started to feel iller and iller, and I had to get everything finished, and that was what was driving me. But I was a bit schizophrenic because of the Banshees thing as well. I was being asked to be this kind of like dark, moody goth figure, and then I was going off and doing Let's Go to Bed and the Love Cats, you know. So I was never really sure, you know, even that, on that sort of fundamental level, I was wearing kind of different, you know, they asked me to wear black, you know. So when I was in the Cure, I was wearing polka dots and bright colours just to react. So it was quite a colourful year all in all, 1983. Not one I'd like to revisit though. But I don't remember huge chunks of it, unfortunately.
What I think is interesting about the Top is that your singing has sort of changed there, or the production of your singing maybe to my ears.
It's true, through the first 4 albums, my vocal, I think on Pornography I screamed a bit more, I let rip a bit more. The first 3 albums I was controlled. My voice is generally just like just a tone, which is on purpose really, because I didn't like what I sounded like. I didn't have the confidence. It's one of the few things that I've lacked confidence in over the years. My dancing on stage is one of the other main ones. I could never kind of, when I used to listen back to what I was singing, I used to think it doesn't sound true. And I thought the more honest I could make it, it was actually just like so I was almost speaking. So my singing voice was just an extension of how I talked. But anything else I tried, I thought it undermined the song. I thought it made the song kind of like glib, I suppose. And when we were doing the Top album, again, it's strange enough, it was in this studio. I took some magic mushrooms and did the caterpillar. It's the first one I did it, and I thought to myself, I'll do a really weird vocal on this. And I just suddenly started singing. It was a really quite a liberating moment, actually, because I went back in the control room, and the next day I thought, I dreaded, because I thought, God, it's just because I was tripping. And the next day I came in and I thought, that's actually right, that's quite good. It's a bit kind of funny, and it allowed me the confidence, and it gave me the confidence to try other things. So you're right, the Top was the first album where I really sort of sang. It was a short-lived lineup, one of the shorter-lived lineups of the band. The turnover was a lot quicker in those days. I think it does take a bit of time. It's like that dynamic I was saying about, for you to kind of get a voice as a band, and that was a bit of a stepping stone really between the Pornography era Cure and the Head and the Door Cure. I mean, the Top album was pretty much a solo record, really. I mean, I was experimenting. But it was good, though. They were good concerts, but they were very direct. They were very to the point. The shows were pretty kind of like short, sharp, you know, and very sort of punky. Everything's pretty, I remember it being very high tempo.